For years, I ran after money like a man chasing his own shadow. You know what I mean when I say that, do you not? Because a shadow moves exactly as fast as you do. It keeps perfect pace. It never falls behind, and it never lets you close the gap. You can sprint toward it across an open field under the full heat of the afternoon sun, and you will arrive breathless, bent at the waist, hands on your knees, and the shadow will be exactly where it always was, ahead of you, out of reach, waiting. That was my life for longer than I care to name. Every morning I woke with the same urgency in my chest, that low electric hum of not enough. And I went out into the world and I chased, I networked, and I hustled, and I calculated, and I worried, and I prayed with the desperate energy of a man who believes that if he simply tries harder, runs faster, wants it more intensely, the gap will finally close. Then one morning I stopped completely, not because I had given up, not because I had accepted defeat. I stopped because something shifted in my understanding so fundamentally that continuing to chase became not just exhausting but structurally impossible. Like a man who has finally understood that he is trying to embrace his own reflection in a pond by reaching into the water. You cannot grab the reflection. You can only change what you are showing it. What happened in the next 30 days did not make sense to my logical mind. It made perfect sense to the law. And tonight, my friend, I am going to tell you exactly what I discovered. Exactly what the law says about money and desire, and the fatal error that keeps a man running toward his own shadow until his legs give out beneath him. I am going to give you a practice you can begin the moment this ends. And if you will truly receive what I am saying tonight, not just hear it but receive it, you will never chase anything again. Stay with me. Let me show you the mistake. Because there is one error at the root of all of this. One structural flaw in how most people relate to money and to every other desire they carry. And it is not laziness. It is not lack of faith. It is not karmic debt or spiritual unworthiness or any of the other explanations the world has offered you. It is something far simpler and far more devastating. The mistake is this. You are treating money as something that exists outside of you, somewhere ahead in the future, waiting to be reached. And in doing so, every single effort you make to get it is quietly, constantly, powerfully confirming that it is not here. Think about what it means to chase something. When you chase, what are you declaring with your body, with your energy, with the full weight of your attention? You are declaring that what you want is over there, separate from you, not yet yours, and consciousness, which is not interested in what you say you believe, but only in what you actually assume to be true, hears that declaration clearly. It hears not yet mine, and it delivers more of not yet. This is the cruel geometry of it. The very act of seeking reinforces the assumption of absence. The very act of working towards something from the inside of lack perpetuates lack. You have heard the phrase like attracts like, and perhaps you have wondered why it has not been working for you. Here is why. Because what you are attracting is not what you want. It is what you are. And what you are, in the marrow of your assumptions, in the unexamined background noise of your inner conversation, is someone who does not yet have it. Someone reaching, someone almost there, someone who will feel abundant when the number in the account finally changes. When the deal finally closes, when the break finally comes, I want you to hear something that may land hard. Wanting is the assumption of absence. Read that again slowly. Wanting is the assumption of absence. When you deeply, urgently, desperately want money, you are not sending a signal of abundance to the universe. You are sending a signal of lack with extraordinary intensity. You are broadcasting on the frequency of not having with every fiber of your being. And the world, which is a faithful and obedient mirror, reflects that signal back to you with mathematical precision. More reaching, more almost, more not yet. Hear me on this. Most people do not have a money problem. They have an assumption problem. The bank account is not the source of the condition. The bank account is the mirror. And you cannot change the mirror by attacking the mirror. You cannot paste a different image onto glass and call it change. The image changes when the one standing before it changes. That is the whole of it. That is what most people spend a lifetime refusing to accept. Because it requires them to stop looking out there for the solution and start doing the only work that has ever actually created anything. The inner work, the assumption work, the being work. Now let me tell you what the law actually says. Because there is a principle here so fundamental, so precise, so utterly without exception, that once you truly grasp it, the pursuit of money as you have been conducting, it becomes not just ineffective but genuinely absurd. The principle is this: consciousness is the only reality, not partly, not poetically, literally, the physical world. Every bill in your wallet, every number on every screen, every face of every person who has ever offered you opportunity or denied you one. All of it is nothing more than the outpicturing of assumptions held within consciousness. The outer world has no independent existence. It is a screen. It is faithful. It is obedient. And it cannot show you anything that is not first assumed within. Think of a still lake, not a dramatic ocean, not a raging river, a still lake on a morning with no wind, and you are standing at its edge. Whatever you bring to that lake, that is what the lake will show you. If you stand at the edge with a face of worry and strain, the lake reflects worry and strain. If you stand at the edge frowning at the image in the water, frowning harder, leaning in closer, demanding that the face in the lake look different, the lake simply reflects back a person frowning and leaning and demanding. The lake does not argue with you. It does not reward your effort with a different image. It reflects only and always. It reflects. You cannot change your reflection by negotiating with the water. You can only change what you bring to the edge. And when you change what you bring, the lake changes instantly, faithfully, without delay, without conditions, without judgment about whether you deserve the new image, because the lake has no opinion about you. The lake simply does what lakes do. It shows you what is standing before it. Money is the lake. Abundance is the lake. Every financial circumstance in your life, the ones you love and the ones that terrify you, has been the lake showing you what you have been bringing to its edge for weeks, for months, for years, in the quiet assumption of your own consciousness. Not what you have said out loud, not what you have affirmed with your voice, what you have assumed, what you have taken for granted, what has simply felt like the truth about you and money in the unexamined background of your being. So the question is never, how do I get more money? That is the wrong question entirely. The question is always and only this: what am I assuming? What is my deep, unargued, bedrock relationship to abundance? When I walk through my day and no one is watching and I am not doing my practice, what does the background noise of my inner conversation say about money, about what is available to me, about what kind of person I am when it comes to financial reality? That is the question. And the answer to that question is what the lake is showing you. Right now, today, faithfully, the lake does not lie. It never has. It never will. Let me tell you about a man I knew. He was in his early 40s when he came to me. Successful by most measures. A business, a home, people who respected him. And yet he lived in a constant, low-grade state of financial terror. Not poverty. Something worse. In a way, the terror of a man who has enough but who is absolutely certain. at the level of his bones, that it is all about to be taken from him. He could not sleep properly. He checked his accounts multiple times each day. Every unexpected expense felt like the beginning of ruin. He told me, I have spent 20 years making money and I have never once felt financially safe. Not one single day. I asked him something that stopped him completely. I asked him, when you imagine your financial life 5 years from now, what do you see? He thought about it and then he said quietly, I see myself scrambling. He said it matter-of-factly, as though this was simply information, as though the future he was imagining was the neutral outcome of external circumstances rather than the precise creative declaration of a consciousness pointing toward its own next experience. I said to him, you have been building your financial life for 20 years based on an assumption you inherited before you were old enough to question it. The assumption is this: money is fragile, and I am always one step from losing it. That assumption is not your history. That assumption is your projector. Everything you have experienced financially, the successes, the losses, the constant low hum of not enough, has been that projector faithfully producing its film on the screen of your life. He did not argue. He was too intelligent for that. He sat with it. And then he said something I have remembered ever since. He said, so I have been working this hard my whole life to confirm a feeling I had when I was 8 years old watching my father panic about the bills. Yes, exactly that. He had carried the state of that 8-year-old boy into every boardroom and every negotiation and every quiet moment of lying awake at 3 in the morning. Not because the circumstances required it, because the assumption ran underneath everything, invisible, unquestioned, treated as the natural truth of reality itself. When we changed the assumption, and it took time, and it took real honesty, and it took a willingness to let go of a story he had been telling for decades, the lake began to show him something different. Not because he worked harder, because he stopped bringing fear to the edge of the water. Now let me become practical, because understanding the principle is the beginning, not the end. And I want to give you something you can carry with you tonight into the territory where the work actually happens. Tonight, before you sleep, I want you to do something unusual. You are going to stop trying to manifest money. You are going to stop reaching forward toward it with the visualizations and the affirmations and the vision boards, all of which are useful tools, but which, in the hands of someone still fundamentally assuming lack, become sophisticated ways of confirming that the desire has not yet arrived. Instead, you are going to do something different. You are going to move, close your eyes and teleport. Not to the moment of receiving money. Not to the scene of the check arriving or the deal closing or the account changing. That scene still has the energy of becoming, of arriving, of transition. It still vibrates with the frequency of not yet. I want you to go further than that. Go past it. Go to a moment 6 months after abundance became simply your normal life. The money has been present long enough that it is no longer exciting. It is just how things are. You know where the light switches are in this new life. You have unpacked your things. This is not a hotel you are visiting. This is the room you live in now. From that ordinary, settled future position, let yourself remember backward. Not imagine forward. Remember backward. Remember the day things turn. Do not construct it as a future scene with hope and reaching and the electric tension of wanting. Remember it the way you remember a conversation you had last week, with the quiet, unargued certainty of something that simply happened. Something that is now in the past. Finished. Historical. Real. Let the memory be specific. Let it have texture. The particular quality of the afternoon light when you realize the shift had come. The voice on the phone. The feeling in your chest. Not excitement, but something quieter and more settled. A deep exhale. A sense of rightness. the recognition that this is simply how things are now. Allow yourself to remember telling someone, remember the stumbling inadequacy of the words because what had happened was larger than language. Remember the ordinary morning 3 months after that, when you woke up and the financial fear was not there, just gone. The way a sound you stopped hearing long ago is gone. Its absence unremarkable. Stay in that remembering for the length of your practice, not hoping forward, remembering backward, and then holding that feeling, the specific, settled, ordinary weight of something already done. Allow yourself to drift towards sleep, because in that soft threshold between waking and sleeping, that hypnagogic state the ancient teachers knew so well, the subconscious mind receives what you bring to it with unusual directness. The seed you plant there in genuine feeling roots immediately into the deep soil of the self and it begins its invisible work. What you are planting tonight is not a wish. It is a memory, and the subconscious mind, which has no calendar, which does not experience time the way your waking mind does, which cannot distinguish between a remembered event and a constructed one, will receive that memory as fact. And from that fact, it will quietly begin reorganizing everything. Your perceptions, the opportunities you notice, the words you choose, the rooms you walk into, the bridge will build itself. Not because you figured out the path, because you made the destination a fact of consciousness. And consciousness, being the only reality, must produce the physical equivalent of what it assumes. Do this every night. And in the morning, before you reach for your phone, before the day reasserts itself, spend 60 seconds in the life you have already remembered yourself into, not performing a technique, simply being the person who lives there, rising from that life, moving through the morning from that life, making your coffee as that person. Not the person trying to become abundant, the person for whom abundance is simply already the weather of their existence. And throughout the day, every time the old conversation rises, every time the background noise begins, its familiar catalogue of not enough, and when will it come, and what if it does not? Catch it, not with force, not with argument. Simply recognize it as the voice of the old room and return without drama, without self-recrimination, back to the memory of the life you are already living in consciousness, back to the knowing, back to the settled, ordinary feeling of it being done. Here is what happens when you truly inhabit that state. Not dramatically, quietly, the inner conversation changes first. That low-grade financial dread that has been running like a program in the background of your mind, the anxious monitoring, the constant inventory of what is missing, it begins to lose its premise. It cannot run the loop of what if it does not come when you have genuinely accepted that it already has. The fear-based inner conversation needs the assumption of absence to survive. Remove that assumption through genuine inner inhabiting, and the conversation simply has nothing to stand on. In its place, something you may not have felt in years, or perhaps ever, stillness, a quality of inner quiet that is not empty but full, saturated with the reality of the fulfilled desire. Your body changes next. You know what financial anxiety feels like in the body. The tightness in the chest, the shallow breath, the restless scanning, the eyes that are always slightly calculating, always measuring the gap between where you are and where you need to be. That is the body of someone assuming threat. The body of someone who inhabits the state of abundance feels different. The breath deepens without effort. The shoulders drop. There is a quality of presence, of genuine arrival in the moment, that comes when you are no longer bracing against an imagined future. People notice this. They cannot name it, but they feel it. There is something magnetic about a person who is genuinely at peace with where they are and what they know. Not the performance of confidence, the actual, quiet, self-contained peace of someone who simply knows, and then the outer world begins to reorganize. Not immediately in every case, not always through the door you anticipated. The law does not consult your preferred pathway, but it reorganizes. The bridge of incidents forms, the conversation happens with the right person at the right moment. The email arrives from a direction you never anticipated. The solution presents itself in a moment of stillness rather than in any moment of striving. And if you have genuinely inhabiting the state, you will not be shocked by this. You will not feel the breathless astonishment of someone whose miracle arrived against the odds. You will feel the quiet satisfaction of someone watching the physical world catch up to what they already knew in consciousness. Of course, yes, obviously, that is how it works. This is not magic. Magic implies the violation of natural law. This is natural law behaving exactly as natural law behaves. The outer world is always and without exception the mirror of the inner. When the inner state genuinely shifts, the outer world has no choice but to follow. Not because someone up above is watching and rewarding, because that is the structure of reality itself. Because consciousness is the only creative force there is, and it creates from whatever it most fundamentally and persistently assumes. Let me tell you the deepest version of what I have been teaching you tonight. Because there is something beneath the technique, beneath the practice, beneath even the law as I have described it. Something that, when you truly see it, collapses the distance between you and your desire entirely. You have been operating under an assumption that is so fundamental you have never questioned it. The assumption that money, abundance, financial ease is something you do not yet have and must acquire. That there is a version of you who lacks and a version of financial reality that has what you lack. And the journey of manifestation is the process of closing the distance between them. That is the map you've been navigating by. And it is wrong, not because abundance is not real. It is real, not because what you desire is not genuinely desirable. It is, but because the version of you who has it already exists. Not in some distant future that must be built brick by brick. It exists now, complete and whole, in the infinite space of states that consciousness can occupy. Creation is finished. Every possible version of your financial life already exists as a fully formed reality in consciousness. What you experience in linear time is the sequential unfolding of whichever state you have been most consistently inhabiting. You are not creating abundance, you are selecting it, moving into it, inhabiting it the way you might move into a house that was already fully built and furnished and waiting for an occupant. When you remembered your desire as already done tonight, you were not constructing a fiction. You were recognizing something real. You were reaching across the apparent gap of linear time to touch what already genuinely exists and bring it into conscious relationship with this present moment. The memory you created is not pretend. It is the most honest thing you could have done. Because the only thing that was ever not real was the story of lack. The story of the gap. The story of the man chasing his own shadow across an open field who does not yet understand that the shadow is not something separate from him that he can catch. It is him, projected outward. It moves when he moves. It stops when he stops. And when he turns around and stops running and stands in the full certainty of who he actually is, the shadow falls where it belongs, behind him. And everything that was always his rushes forward to meet him. So here is where we have arrived tonight. My friend, here is what I want you to carry into the quiet hours ahead. You are not a man chasing money. You are not a woman reaching toward abundance. You are the consciousness from which all financial reality, like all reality, is drawn. The money is not somewhere ahead of you. It is something you have been failing to recognize as already yours. Not because you are unworthy, not because the law has exceptions you fall under, But because you have been looking at the shadow and calling it the obstacle, when the only obstacle has ever been the direction of your gaze, turn around. Stop running. Stand in the quiet, unhurried, fully inhabited certainty of the one who already has, not the one who is about to have, not the one who is trying hard to believe they will have, the one who simply, naturally, ordinarily already does. That person wakes up tomorrow morning and makes their coffee from inside that life. That person moves through their day from inside that assumption. That person does not monitor the horizon for signs. That person does not check the account 17 times looking for confirmation. That person knows, and from that knowing flows everything. The inner conversation shifts. The body relaxes. The bridge forms. The outer world follows. Because it always does. Because it always has. Because it always will. Tonight, before sleep, remember, not forward, backward, from the life already lived, from the abundance already ordinary, from the quiet, satisfied morning of the person who stopped chasing and discovered, in the stillness, that what they had been running toward had been standing patiently at their starting point all along. Lie down in that memory. Let it settle into you the way warmth settles into cold hands. Let the last thing your waking mind knows before sleep receives it be the quiet weight of already, the specific gravity of done, the unremarkable certainty of a man who ran for years and one morning simply stopped and stood and let the world reorganize itself around the truth he had finally agreed to inhabit. It is done. Good evening, my friend. Rest now in the knowing that it is already yours. I will see you again in the next video.